What happened to Meghan Markle? The woman who once captivated millions with her fairy tale romance and promises to modernize the monarchy now seems to be spiraling out of control, out of favor, and out of options. How did we go from seeing her as a trailblazer, someone with the world at her feet, to a punchline for every late-night show? In today's video, we're diving deep into the shocking fall of Meghan Markle, from her failed business ventures to the cracks in her royal facade, and the growing tension in her relationship with Harry. But there's more. This isn't just a story about a celebrity losing her grip. It's about a woman who once saw herself as untouchable, only to watch her world crumble under the weight of her own contradictions. Stick around, because what we uncover might just change the way you see the Duchess of Sussex forever. And hey, before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. Let's get into it. How did Meghan Markle, once hailed as the breath of fresh air the British royal family so desperately needed, end up as the target of so much ridicule? When she first entered the public eye, there was hope. Hope that this biracial American actress would bring a new perspective to the royal family, shaking things up in a way that might make the centuries-old institution seem more in tune with modern times. She was bold, confident, and, yes, undeniably captivating. But what has happened in the years since? Why is she now a shadow of the woman who once seemed unstoppable? It's hard to believe, but Meghan Markle once stood at the pinnacle of public approval. From the moment her engagement to Prince Harry was announced, she captured the imagination of millions. Her charm, intelligence, and unique background seemed to promise a royal presence that could finally be seen as modern, diverse, and relatable. But looking at where she is today, you have to wonder, was it all just smoke and mirrors? One of the central questions we must ask is this: what went wrong? Is it simply that Meghan's grand aspirations clashed with the reality of royal life? Or is there something deeper, more troubling, at play here? When Meghan and Harry announced they were stepping down as senior members of the royal family, they promised us a new path, a life of financial independence, of being free to pursue their own ambitions without the constraints of royal duties. But if we look closely at their track record since that departure, it's hard to ignore the fact that many of their ventures have fallen flat. From the failed Spotify deal to the widely criticized Netflix docuseries, Meghan's post-royal life is far from the fairy tale she once envisioned. Let's start by talking about the public image Meghan created for herself and how quickly it started to unravel. Meghan's early days in the royal family were marked by a confident, almost defiant energy. She appeared to have a plan. She was going to modernize the monarchy, make it more relevant, and prove that she could do the job better than those who were born into it. In interviews, Meghan often spoke about how she wanted to change the world and use her position to uplift others. Her confidence, combined with her background in acting and philanthropy, gave her an air of credibility. But then, over time, the cracks began to show. The grand statements about modernizing the monarchy, it started to feel more like a pipe dream than a reality. The turning point, however, seemed to come after the Oprah interview. That interview, where Meghan and Harry painted a picture of their lives within the royal family as being full of racism and mistreatment, replaced by skepticism. But it's not just the interview that raised eyebrows. Meghan's refusal to follow royal traditions, her choice to break away from the family's established way of doing things, raised many questions. Is Meghan trying to rewrite the rules of what it means to be royal? Or is she simply out of touch with what people expect from the monarchy? There's a fine line between modernizing an institution and overstepping your bounds. And the more Meghan spoke, the more it seemed like she was walking that line, if not crossing it entirely. Some argue that Meghan's problems stem from unrealistic expectations not only placed on her by the public, but also ones she set for herself. She came into the royal family with all these grand ideas about how she could change things, but instead of sticking to the royal duties she was given, she seemed to constantly clash with the very institution that offered her a platform in the first place. Could it be that she bit off more than she could chew? That the pressures of living up to those expectations are finally catching up with her? Yet, there's another theory. Some believe Meghan's true downfall lies in her inability to balance the personal with the professional. In the royal family, Meghan was expected to be a part of a team led by the Queen. followed by Prince William and others who were born into these roles. But Meghan's approach was different. She never truly seemed to accept her place in the family hierarchy. While her intentions might have been noble, wanting to modernize and make a... And that leads us to another uncomfortable question. Has Meghan's desire for fame clouded her judgment? Is it possible that in her quest to be a global icon, she's alienated the very people who once supported her? The public's reaction to Meghan now is largely split. On one side, you have her loyal fans, who defend her at every turn. On the other side, you have critics who are growing louder every day, pointing to her failed projects, her inconsistency, and her seeming lack of self-awareness. The truth is somewhere in between. As we dive deeper into Meghan Markle's post-royal life, we must face a harsh reality. Her business ventures have been far from the success she anticipated. When she and Prince Harry stepped down from royal duties, they promised a life of financial independence. They were going to forge their own path, build an empire, and leave the confines of royal protocol behind. But instead of a smooth transition to new heights, Meghan has found herself stumbling. And the once promising image she cultivated now feels more like a mirage. Let's talk about her foray into business. Meghan Markle and Harry have launched multiple ventures, yet none of them seem to have the staying power or success they had envisioned. And share meaningful conversations with the world has turned out to be, well, nothing. They have released just one podcast under their Archewell audio brand. And let's face it, it was underwhelming. No major hits, no compelling content that kept audiences hooked. But it's not just Spotify. Meghan's attempts at launching her own product lines have been equally disappointing. Her venture into fashion was met with promise when she launched her lifestyle brand, lacking the unique touch that could have made it a lasting business. Then there's the more recent attempt with As Ever, the lifestyle brand that was supposed to change the game. Meghan made waves with the announcement. But again, this brings us to a fundamental question. Is Meghan simply trying to do too much? Or is she fundamentally lacking the ability to sustain a business? From all these failed ventures. Now, let's look at the historical context. When we compare Meghan's efforts to those of others who have successfully built brands outside of traditional royal duties, her branding, her identity, seems inconsistent, unlike Diana, who carefully cultivated her public image and made it work for her long after she left the royal spotlight. So, what's going wrong? Some may argue that Meghan lacks the visionary mindset needed to create lasting businesses. In her case, it seems that there's more focus on the celebrity side of things, more emphasis on fame and less on building something sustainable. It's as though she believes that her royal connection and celebrity status will be enough to keep her afloat. But the reality is, that doesn't always work. Businesses fail for reasons beyond star power, and the lack of a solid foundation can lead to inevitable collapse. This brings us back to a deeper point. Is it her ambition that's her biggest flaw? It's undeniable that Meghan Markle is ambitious, perhaps to a fault. She wants to be more than a royal. She wants to be a global icon, a businesswoman, a mogul. But with all of this ambition comes a tendency to bite off more than she can chew. When things don't pan out, she's left with nothing but disappointment. And that, in turn, affects her public image. People begin to question whether she can truly succeed at anything. And the more failures mount up, the more difficult it is to recover. As we continue to explore Meghan Markle's complex journey since leaving the royal family, we must now turn our attention to the personal relationships that have defined much of her post-royal life. Specifically, there's no denying the depth of their connection. The chemistry between them is palpable. And from the very beginning, their love story was one for the history books. But as time has passed, cracks have started to form, not just in their marriage, but in their public image. The question that many are now asking is, has Meghan's relationship with Harry reached a breaking point? Let's start with what we know. Prince Harry, once the carefree, beloved heir to the throne, has increasingly seemed out of place in the world Meghan has built for them. His desire to leave royal life behind was clear. But as time has gone on, there are signs that his decision may not have been as clear-cut as it seemed. Reports indicate that Harry is increasingly distant from his family, from his old life, and perhaps, most tellingly, from Meghan herself. Could it be that the same person who helped build Meghan's public image has begun to question the very path they've chosen? For years, Meghan was seen as the driving force behind their joint ventures. She was the one with the grand ideas, The one with the vision to remake their lives in Hollywood, in the media, in the business world. But what we're now starting to see is Harry slowly pulling away, not just physically but emotionally. As Meghan's ventures falter, Harry's public appearances have become less frequent. And when he does show up, he often seems distracted, even uncomfortable. Let's take a step back and look at this from a historical perspective. The royal family has long been a complex institution, and members have often struggled to reconcile personal desires with public duty. But Harry's situation is unique. He is the first member of the royal family to step away from his royal duties so dramatically. And now it appears he's trying to find a balance between his love for Meghan and his growing realization that their new life may not be what he imagined. Many are starting to wonder if Harry is beginning to realize the consequences of his choices, not just in terms of his relationship with Meghan, but with the public and his family. In recent months, there have been whispers that Harry is financially distancing himself from Meghan. Is he slowly starting to separate their finances? Could he be making an exit plan? Perhaps subconsciously, as their relationship shows signs of strain? Some believe that Harry is caught in a tug-of-war between his loyalty to Meghan and the deepening sense of loss that comes with abandoning his family and royal duties. There's no question that Harry has faced immense pressure, but is it possible that, despite his love for Meghan, he's starting to regret the choices he made, the alliances he formed? Now, let's consider Meghan's side of things. Many people have commented on how she controls the narrative in her marriage, in her career, and in her public image. If we look at their past behavior, it's easy to see how the relationship has evolved. When they first met, Meghan was independent, a Hollywood actress with a career of her own. At the time, like the perfect escape, we can't ignore the public nature of their relationship. The more they've tried to control the narrative, the more the public has reacted, and not always in their favor. Or is their bond simply being tested by the weight of their choices? As we wrap up our deep dive into Meghan Markle's tumultuous post-royal life, we can't ignore one of the most crucial elements, her mental and emotional state. Over the years, we've watched Meghan go from being a shining star in the royal family to a woman seemingly caught in a downward spiral. The once confident, self-assured Duchess now seems to be on the brink of unraveling, and it's hard to ignore the signs. So, what's really happening? Could it be that the pressure of living up to the world's expectations has finally gotten to her? Or is there something deeper at play? Meghan's behavior in recent months has raised many eyebrows. Public appearances, social media posts, and even her interactions with the press seem to be increasingly manic, out of sync with the poised. It's easy to chalk it up to stress. After all, who wouldn't be under pressure when their career, marriage, and public image are all hanging by a thread? The cracks began to show. Now, we're seeing the full fallout of this narcissistic breakdown. Meghan is grasping for control, trying to maintain the illusion that everything is fine. But the more she tries, the more desperate she appears. There's a deep fear beneath her actions, the fear of losing everything, of being exposed as the person she never wanted anyone to see. And that fear is starting to shape her decisions. The question we have to ask is, how much of this is Meghan trying to control her own narrative? And how much of it is simply her desperately trying to hold on to what little she has left? This isn't just about failing business ventures or a shaky marriage. This is about the unraveling of a woman who was once at the top of her game. Meghan has built her life on the foundation of her image. And then there's the issue of Harry. Many have speculated that Harry's increasingly distant behavior is not just a result of personal stress, but a reaction to Meghan's own unraveling. Could it be that Harry is starting to see the cracks in their relationship and is distancing himself emotionally, even if he's not ready to do so publicly? For years, Harry has been the supportive partner, the one who stood by Meghan's side. But as Meghan's behavior becomes more erratic, there are whispers that Harry is quietly trying to pull away. But even if Harry stays, how much longer can he ignore the signs? Has Meghan's mental state become too much for him to handle? If we look at the historical context of the royal family, but there are striking similarities in how both women sought escape and were ultimately consumed by their public personas. As we come to the end of this video, it's clear that Meghan Markle's journey since leaving the royal family has been anything but smooth. From her grand ambitions to reinvent herself outside of royal life, there's no easy answer. It seems that the public's perception of Meghan is now shaped by the failures of her ventures, the unraveling of her public image, and the tension in her personal life. Whether or not she can rise above it all and redefine herself once again is something only time will tell. But what do you think? Is Meghan's story a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition? Or is she simply a victim of circumstances that she couldn't control? Do you think there's still hope for her to reclaim her place in the public eye? Or is she too far gone? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. This is a conversation worth having. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into Meghan Markle's journey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of the royal family.